Welcome to the school of your future at the heart of the urban landscape. At Ignacio Villamor Senior High School, we believe that hope starts here. A pleasant day. Before I get started, I would like to share my experience as a pioneer batch of senior high teacher in implementing the K-12 program. In line with this, we actually encountered several scenarios of what do we so-called nangangapa. From the curriculum implementation and now the current struggle was in work immersion. I am Mrs. Camille ZARCO-LARIOSA, and I'm here to present to you my research title, An Appraisal on Work Immersion Program of Ignacio Villamor Senior High School. The primary basis of my study is anchored from the DepEd Order No. 30 series of 2017, as released last June 5, 2017. As I review or appraise the work immersion program of Ignacio Villamor Senior High School, the researcher is enlightened with the guidelines of work immersion program. So what is work immersion? It is one of the course requirement for graduation as a senior high school student has to undergo work immersion in an industry that directly relate to the student post-secondary goals. Basically, work immersion program is 80 hours is the minimum hour. The grade 11 student can also undergo the immersion only if he or she finish all specialized subjects. Work immersion delivery models are from A to D, to depend on the learner's need, from minimum of 80 hours to 320 hours that the company standard hours. This is based on the delivery process suited for the learners. So I have here the sample strand that required specialized subjects before work immersion, research, career advocacy, or culminating. That is under the DepEd Order number 39 series of 2018 for additional clarification in work immersion program. So this work immersion, as said, that 80 hours may be scheduled for no more than 8 cumulative or consecutive hours per day. And of course, the Department of Education prepared the teachers training modules on the work immersion program. So as the Undersecretary of the Department of Education, the Honorable Mr. Tony Umaling, clear the true vision, mission, and goal of work immersion, supported by the industry or private institutions. So what we have here, for example, the ABS-CBN and company, they also welcome the senior high school students. So what are the problems? So based on the study of Dave Camposano, the problem encountered by the trainees during their immersion are the time conflicts between classes interrupted when the available schedule for the work immersion venue is not suitable for the academic school calendar. Second, is a learner who are not fully equipped to the standard characteristic of the company's trainee, and of course, the minimum number of hours work immersion find it a disadvantage for partner industry. And the distance of the cooperating firm is too far from school vicinity for monitoring. Okay, so let us identify the gaps. So, of course, the time conflict between classes, the distance of the cooperating firm is too far from the school vicinity for monitoring, learners are who are not fully equipped to the standard characteristic of the company's trainee, And the last one, the minimum number of 80-hour work immersion find it disadvantage of partner industry. So welcome to the work immersion of Ignacio Villamor Senior High School, and some of our partner institutions for the cookery strand are the Casa Rosas Malacanang, Aristocrat Commissary and Bake Shop, Shakey's Restaurant, and more. Okay, so based on the study of Katipunan, so the success of work immersion program depends largely upon the positive attitude of the student whose role is to perform leadership and the much needed skill. Furthermore, according to El Brio, an internship combined the theory that students learn in school with practical work experience and lasts for about 3 months to 1 year. Basically, the implementation of work immersion will depend on the strong collaboration, support, and commitment of the school personnel and partner institution. Okay. However, the Asian qualification reference is common reference framework that will function as a translation device to enable comparison of qualification across participating ASEAN countries. The purpose of the ASEAN qualification reference framework is to promote and encourage credit transfer and learner mobility, promote worker mobility, and lead to better understanding the higher quality qualification system. So we have here the qualification framework, articulation for grade 10 and grade 12. So this study is also anchored in the DepEd Order No. 30 series of 2017, as it played indispensable role in providing the guideline for work immersion. In this connection, based on the DepEd Order No. 30 series of 2017, to ensure the achievement of the objective of work immersion, the senior high school should be guided in creating flexible work immersion arrangement for their learners, providing options for work immersion that are relevant to learners' purposes and needs. Based on the study of Camposano, the evaluation result conducted by the focal person and work immersion teacher using the DepEd monitoring tool at different private institutions, there are some problems arising out of work immersion program. Particularly, a clear work immersion venue was made for all students undergoing into this program. Profile of confirming work immersion partner are not readily available for reference by students, parents, and teachers. The problem encountered by the trainees during the work immersion are the time conflict between classes interrupted when the available schedule for the work immersion venue is not suited for the academic school calendar. Second is a learner who is not fully equipped to the standard characteristic of the company trainee, the minimum number of 80 hours work immersion find it disadvantage of partner industry, and the distance of the cooperating team is too far from school vicinity. So that is based on the study of PHEA habitat. So for background, work immersion is one of the academic requirements for graduation in the senior high school program of the basic education curriculum. It is one of the 9 specialized subjects in senior high school. During the immersion, learners are immersed in the actual work environment. according to Camposano. Okay, so we are always supported with the guidelines for work immersion to guide and implementation of the work immersion in all senior high school. So let's find out uh, the guidelines for work immersion. DepEd Order Number 39, Series of 2009, on commercialization of school, which expressly prohibited the appearance of any forms of institutional endorsement by the DepEd for any commercial product or service within the school premises in exchange for any senior high school industry partnership. So another work immersion DepEd Order Memorandum, the DepEd Order Number 6, Series of 2012, which expressly prohibited all forms and manner of cooperation or partnership with the tobacco industry in all areas of the country. While the DepEd Order Number 40, Series of 2012, entitled Child Protection Policy, DepEd Order Number 80, Series of 2012, entitled Strengthening the Integration of Breastfeeding Education in the Curriculum, the DepEd Order Number 55, Series of 2013, Implementing Rules and Regulation of Republic Act Number 10627, otherwise known as Anti-Bullying Act of 2013. Another Republic Act 7877, an act declaring sexual harassment unlawful in the employment, education, or training environment. We also have the clarification and additional information to DepEd Order Number 30, Series of 2017, which is the guidelines on work immersion based on in all areas to be monitored, which is the DepEd Order Number 39, Series of 2018. The monitoring and evaluation of work immersion per department memorandum with the Bureau of Curriculum Development and Bureau of Learning Development. This office enjoins the participation of grade 12 students who have undergone work immersion last September 22, 2018, and answering the online survey found at the www.deped.in with students. So the activity aims to gather data, relevant information, and feedback on the actual implementation of the work immersion subject. The monitoring tools are provided and gathered by the Curriculum and Learning Management Division. It is undeniable that there will be problems that arise as they implement the program. Okay, so we have here our ICT and ABM students. The study primarily aimed to appraise the work immersion program of Ignacio Villamor Senior High School. Specifically, it sought to answer the following questions. How can the training inputs of the work immersion program be described in terms of the following profile of the respondents? Under the graduate profile, we have X, age, sex, strand, test the national certificate, the training attended. Under the work immersion teacher profile, we have age, sex, marital status, position, educational attainment, area of specialization, training attended, length of service, number of years in industrial experience, eligibility, and of course, the national certification. Second, how can the training processes of the work immersion program appraised by the students and work immersion teacher in terms of first, curriculum implementation and compliance. Second, work immersion delivery process. Third, assessment of student process. Fourth, supervision of work immersion implementation and administrative concerns. Third, question, how can the training output of the work immersion program be described in terms of first, student work immersion rating from the industry. Second, student work immersion rating from the work immersion teacher in charge. And the last question, is there a significant difference on the appraisal of areas monitored work immersion program of senior high school student when grouped according to strength? We had senior high school student of ICT, cookery, and ABM. So let me introduce to you my research paradigm. So we have the IPO model include the preparation of the program. Okay. So as the input, we have here the input plan of the program or the process and the feedback of the program and of course output and input in IPO evaluation model refers to the most important contribution to the overall effectiveness of the program, just as training qualifications, instructor experience, the availability of already tested instructional materials and the types of equipments, and the training facilities and the training budget. On the other hand, input can be meant to be the kind of resources which provide a service. However, process is the program activity that can increase the value of the program. For example, the plan, design, develop, and how the trainer delivers the material. The short-term output of the long-term output is what we call the outcome. In the IPO model, according to Chen and Wang, the reaction level in four-level evaluation model by Kirkpatrick. It can be called as the output result as in IPO model. So output result refers to the customer satisfaction, the improvement of employee performance, corporate profits, rate of profits, competitiveness, and survival capacity. So according to Bushnell, predicted that in the short term, output stakeholders or the employees can gain trainees' reactions, knowledge, skills, and the improvement job performance from the educational training program. The last outcome refers to the description of intended and unintended impact or consequences of the program. According to Bushnell, the desired outcome does not flow directly from the output, but outcome does impose the availability of the training resources. So we have here the Ignacio Villamor Senior High School Immersion Program Appraisal framework adopted from Bushnell IPO model. So we have here The scope and limitation of this study. The study was primarily intended to review the status of the preliminary appraisal of the senior high school work immersion, are the pioneer, graduate, and work immersion teacher of Ignacio Villamor Senior High School during the school year 2017-2018. It considered the profile of the student respondent under the input variable and the process variables of appraisal of the student and work immersion teachers respondent use the following areas, namely the curriculum implementation and compliance, the work immersion delivery process, assessment of the student process, supervision of work immersion implementation, and administrative concern. On the other hand, we have the output variables, and the last one with variables is outcome. The present study used a descriptive method focusing on an appraisal of work immersion program of Ignacio Villamor Senior High School using a survey questionnaire. The descriptive quantitative method used the sample survey that employed to analyze, interpret, and report the present status of a subject matter, topic, or problem. So under the population sampling size and sampling techniques, the respondents of this study are the pioneer batch of the senior high graduates of Ignacio Villamor Senior High School, coordinators, work immersion teachers, and focal person. To select student respondent, the process involved in purpose sampling in terms of selecting graduate students of ABM, ICT, and cookery strand. As part of the questionnaire is the demographic profile of these respondents, and the researchers adopted the work immersion evaluation and monitoring tool provided by the Department of Education under the DepEd Order No. 30 series of 2017. Again, we have five areas to be monitored. So we have here the work immersion monitoring and evaluation tool, page 1 to 4. As we gathered the data from the result of evaluation from the conducted study, all the data pertinent to the topics of this study were gathered personally by the researcher. Primarily, data were gathered from the field of questionnaire administered to the respondents of the school covered in this study. Under the statistical treatment of data, we use frequency distribution, the weighted mean, analysis of variance or ANOVA. Okay, so here we go with the presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. Under the profile of the respondents in input variable, so we have the profile of the graduate student and the actual age, sex, and the strength. So the age group with the least number age, 20 years old of the respondent comprising 10 or 8.8%. Under the teacher's profile, we have, of course, the actual age, sex, marital status, position, and educational attainment. So majority of the respondents are ranging 15 to 20 years old. They are, uh, and this study revealed that all of the respondents are only attended one mandated by the DepEd work immersion seminar, and majority of the respondents are ranging 6 to 10 years. So for the number of years in industrial experience, the data revealed the majority of the respondents under the teachers are ranging 1 to 5 industry experience. So it refers to the years. While in terms of eligibility or the national certification, the study tells that the majority of the respondents are national certificate holder as well as lab passers. For the training output of work immersion program or output variables, the work immersion grades, the data reveal that ranging 91 to 95 grade was given as work immersion grade to the respondents. For the work immersion portfolio score, majority of the respondents' work immersion portfolio score are ranging from 91 to 95 also. For the training processes of the work immersion, or under the process variables, which is the curriculum implementation and compliance. So for the table number 2, appraisal of the respondent in terms of curriculum implementation and compliance. It presents the appraisal of the student and teachers respondent in terms of curriculum and implementation compliance, the appraisal of senior high school work immersion focal person, teacher, and student in the indicator. Students have been immersed in a workplace where they can learn more and apply the skills they learn in their specialization. As total of the general weighted mean, the appraisal of senior high school work immersion focal person, teacher, and students in terms of work immersion curriculum implementation and compliance have the weighted mean score 4.72, whereas the appraisal is verbally interpreted as highly evident. For the table number 3, work immersion delivery process, appraisal of the respondent in terms of work immersion delivery process. Okay, so it presents the appraisal of senior high school work immersion focal person, teacher, and student in the indicator, the competence that students have learned in their specialization was applied during the work immersion, have the highest weighted mean score of 4.87, which is verbally interpreted as highly evident. As the total of the general weighted mean, the appraisal of senior high school work immersion focal person, teacher, and student in terms of the senior high school work immersion delivery process have the weighted mean score of 4.65, whereas the appraisal is verbally interpreted as highly evident. And for the table number 4, as a total of the general weighted mean, the appraisal of work immersion focal person, teacher, and student in terms of work immersion assessment of student progress have the weighted mean score of 4.63, whereas the appraisal is verbally interpreted as highly evident as well. And we have the table number 5, present the appraisal of the students and teachers respondent in terms of the supervision of work immersion implementation. It is a clear monitoring plan of, before the start of the work immersion is evident. As the total of the general weighted mean for the table number 3, the appraisal of senior high school work immersion vocal person, teacher, and student in terms of work immersion, the delivery process have the weighted mean score of 4.81, whereas the appraisal is verbally interpreted as highly evident. We have table number 6 showing the test of the significant difference on the appraisal of areas monitored in work immersion program of senior high school student when grouped according to strand. We have curriculum implementation and compliance, work immersion delivery process, assessment of student process, supervision of work immersion implementation, and the last is administrative concern. So this finding explained that the strand of the student is an important factor to consider in designing an enhancement work immersion program. So let us find out the summary of finding appraisal of the respondent under the process variables. Under the curriculum implementation and compliance, as a total of the general weighted mean, the appraisal in terms of the curriculum implementation and compliance have weighted mean score of 4.72, whereas the appraisal is verbally interpreted as highly evident. Same with work immersion delivery process, assessment of student process, supervision of work immersion implementation, and administrative concern. So all of those are highly evident. And for the significant difference on the appraisal of areas monitored in work immersion program of senior high school student when grouped according to strand under the curriculum implementation and compliance, work immersion delivery process, assessment of student, supervision of work immersion implementation, and the administrative concern. For the conclusion, the following are the conclusion based on the findings of this study. In appraising the work immersion program, the following variables are important, namely, under input variables, the student profile, and work immersion personnel. Second, the appraisal of training process variable of the senior high school work immersion personnel and students on areas monitored like curriculum implementation and compliance, work immersion delivery process, assessment of student process, supervision of work immersion implementation, and administrative concern is all highly evident. Third, the training output of the work immersion program was described through an individual portfolio and work immersion score rated by the work immersion personnel and partners industry is all highly evident that is characterized by student output and portfolio. Next, the training outcome or impact of the program will result after a longer time. There is no significant difference on the appraisal of areas monitored in work immersion program of senior high school student when grouped. According to Strand, therefore, the proposed work immersion program is suited to all strands. For the recommendation, the following are the recommendation of the researcher to the beneficiary of the study. First, to strengthen the work immersion program, school may adopt the 240 to 320 hours if properly distributed among the semester, including summer. Second, For the partner institution must continue providing a prescribed template of student activities in their companies. Third, for the senior high school head or principal, school partnership, focal persons, and work immersion teachers should maintain and develop the curriculum implementation and compliance, work immersion delivery process, assessment of student process, supervision of work immersion implementation, and administrative concern, as all areas are evident in monitoring the process by adopting the proposed work immersion enhancement program. Work immersion teachers must maintain formulating matrix of student competence per specialization. And for the students should perform the checklist of competences with remarks of the partner institution supervisor should be uphold. And for the school head should review the utilized budget, venue visited and monitoring result, and adopt an improved map of facilities and venues in relation to the school location. And finally, based on the findings of the study, work immersion enhancement program is hereby proposed for the adaptation of DepEd and senior high school offering institution. So the work immersion improvement plan is adopted in Ignacio Villamor Senior High School. Thank you. Once again, I am Mrs. Camille ZARCO-LARIOSA. Thank you.